I take climate change very seriously. I think it's an area where there is undoubtedly a lot of uncertainty in the science, but the uncertainty, to my mind, is not, is climate change serious or is it not serious? It's about the speed at which things might happen, where in the world they might happen, what kinds of changes you might get in the climate, what kind of responses there might be in ecosystems, what kind of responses there might be from people, possibility of migration, for example. Well, I think we should be doing, actually, meeting the kinds of commitments that the government has already set out, in the sense that it has said that its aim is to cut greenhouse gas emissions by 80% from their 1990 levels by 2050. And I think that is an appropriate approach, and I think we should be doing that. I've looked in two areas. Initially, some of my work was looking at the way in which a number of developing countries either were or weren't transiting from dependence on traditional biomass fuels, wood, crop residues, animal dung and so on, to the modern fuels like electricity, gas, various forms of petroleum fuels. And then I started to look also at the historical knowledge that we already had in relation to the UK energy system and other energy systems where there's quite good data and where major transformations have happened in the past. And Britain's Industrial Revolution is a very strong example of that. And what we see in looking back through the centuries is examples of major changes, transiting from one fuel to the next fuel and introducing new technologies. So you could think of the moving from traditional wood fuels and charcoal to coal. You could think of moving from coal to gas to petroleum to electricity, bringing in the internal combustion engine, the steam engine earlier on. All of these things have actually been quite major transformations and have had major impacts on our economy and on people's quality of life. So we know that these things can happen, but we also know that in the past they have often taken really quite a long time, and there can be a lot of inertia in our systems. And because of that, that leads me to think that although I think the targets that we have currently are appropriate, it's going to be really quite a challenge to get sufficient buy-in and sufficient action from the whole range of actors, from the public to energy companies, new and old, governments, local and national, and indeed international, to get the kind of buy-in that you need if you're going to have the sort of radical transformation of an energy system that is involved in going towards a genuinely low-carbon system. I'm not sure that we will, but I think there's every possibility that we could do that. I think it'll be uncomfortable in some ways, and it will require some quite bold decision-making and behavioural change by quite a lot of people. So I think it can be done, and I'm not pessimistic in the sense that I believe we won't get there, but I do think it is a question of translating targets into actually action on the ground, and action that begins relatively soon.
Well, ultimately, climate change, or the link between carbon dioxide in the atmosphere and increase in atmospheric temperature, is a theory. But the weight of scientific evidence is such that we really can't afford to be doing nothing about it. So I'm putting my money on the fact that it exists, and we have to do something about it right now. London's a fine example of a big city. It's got people living there, it's got people working there. All that requires some kind of energy and the consequent production of carbon dioxide. We have a large transport infrastructure which is actually growing. We also have large building projects such as the Olympic site. Obviously we have a water management issue, a waste management issue. So all of these areas must be tackled and to introduce low carbon alternatives. But probably more important than any of these things is to actually have the workforce there to actually execute these things. And at the moment, we really don't have that capability. There's a number of different options. We can reduce the population of the Earth, which isn't really practical. we can actually stop doing the things we're doing at the moment, or we can do them more efficiently, or we can introduce new kind of technologies which will allow us to produce electrical power and heat much more efficiently and in a low carbon way. We're working on a raft of different low carbon technologies. We're looking at, for example, ways of producing low carbon cement. Cement is actually the third largest man-made source of carbon dioxide. So we're looking at ways of actually producing that at much lower temperature and with much lower carbon impact. We are looking at ways of taking waste and reacting it with carbon dioxide from the flue gas from power stations to produce building materials. So we're winning in the sense of dealing with waste. We're extracting carbon dioxide and we're actually producing a useful product. And we're also tackling the transport issue by developing fuel cell technologies which actually run on hydrogen and produce no emissions at the point of use. I'm afraid the lights would just go out. We simply don't have the existing infrastructure based on conventional technologies to continue to power growing cities like London. So we have to, at the very least, invest in an infrastructure which can handle the technology, the power requirement of the future. But ideally, we need, and we have the opportunity now to actually build in alternative renewable power systems such as wind, wave, and solar.
So Vivergo Fuels is a joint venture, and the joint venture partners are Associated British Foods, BP and DuPont. And we're here to construct and build a wheat to bioethanol plant at Saltend site, and all of that is intended to make renewable fuel for the UK and European markets. It's very important, I think, at the moment the Copenhagen climate change talks are underway, and a big part of that is going to be a requirement to reduce our greenhouse gas emissions, and at the moment about 25% of greenhouse gas emissions in Europe come from transport. Within Vivergo, we're going to need a whole range of skills. So we need vocational skills for the people that are going to operate the plant. We're going to need apprenticeship skills for the engineers who are going to maintain the plant. And then we need a set of professional skills to make sure that we run efficient production, to make sure that we maintain safe operations, and also we need biotechnology skills so that we can optimise the plant and make sure that we get the absolute maximum efficiency. What we don't have are people who have the practical understanding of engineering, of big engineering, because this is a big plant. I mean, we're going to produce about 420 million litres per year of biofuel and 500,000 tonnes per year of animal feed from 1.2 million tonnes of wheat. So this is a big operation with big pieces of equipment, and what we need are people who understand that equipment and understand how to operate and maintain it. What we have to do is to give them those skills ourselves. So what we need to do is we need more time to train them before we can make good use of them. So it creates a risk to the operation of the business, and it creates more cost to us because we have to employ them for longer before they are useful. The way that biofuels, renewable energy in general, is going to be successful is by innovation and by new technologies coming along that are going to enable a much broader use of different feedstocks, to enable new fuels to be produced that are more compatible, to enable new engines that are more compatible with the new fuels to be developed, all of which lead to a lower carbon future. I think the message from me is that the industry in the UK isn't on a downward trend. There are big opportunities within industry. I think renewable energy is going to be very, very important to the future of the UK, of Europe, and of the whole world. And we do need people at all levels coming through with technology backgrounds, with engineering backgrounds, and with the ability to lead these businesses so that we are successful in ensuring that we do meet the expectations of our children and our grandchildren going forward.